Okay, hello everyone. My name is Volmar. This is probably one of the first videos I've recorded that actually has commentary, other than a couple of unlisted videos where I'm running a D&D game. But I figured might as well give it a try. I don't know, doubt very many people will actually watch this video, but doesn't hurt to at least try. So this is one of my more recent decks that been playing. It is a deck built around the notorious Paradox Engine plus One Ring combo. So those of you that don't know what this does, um, Paradox Engine reads whenever you cast a spell, untap all non-land permanents you control. And the way you build around this is by running loads and loads and loads of mana rocks. Um, I'll get to those in a minute. The other part of the combo is the One Ring, which is a little bit newer card. Paradox Engine has been broken for God knows how long. Banned in quite a few formats and still getting played in any format that it isn't unbanned. Um, the One Ring came out with the Lord of the Rings set. It is a 4 mana artifact, legendary artifact, that's indestructible, so it's a absolute pain to remove. There are ways you can get around that. However, it is just a pain to remove. It reads indestructible, 4 mana. When it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, so no cheating this out, you get protection from everything until your next turn. Protection to everything does is you, the player, cannot be targeted, dealt damage, or enchanted. You can still lose life, which I'll be getting to something related to that. Um, you can technically still be attacked. So for on attack triggers for creatures, will still trigger. But functionally, you just don't. The opponent just can't interact with you as a player. They can still interact with the entirety of your board, which can lead to issues. However, I've found a large number of the current decks I play against are um, run creature removal and don't run as much backline removal, which is basically anything that isn't a creature. I also have a 1 of Forsaken Monument on the top end. This is just basically a win more card. It does also help with matchups like Orcus Bowmaster, which shows up in just about any black deck worth their salt. Yes, I am not running Orcus Bowmaster. There's not really room for them in this deck. But Orcus Bowmaster is one of the basically premier anti-cards. Basically, it punishes drawing whilst making a body, pinging stuff. This card is just an absolute pain for it to exist um in the meta and that sort of thing. But um, just a really good card that deals with especially One Ring very well. Um, within reason. Like it doesn't all like the turn One Ring comes down where you are protection from everything. This won't really do anything, and if you can combo off that turn, you can actually get Bowmaster to ping something else um because they can't target you. And this deck doesn't run any creatures. The only other thing that the Orcish Bowmaster could target is our Karn. Um, I'll get to that in a minute. We're gonna be in laggy as usual. So what is this deck's win condition? So I put out a video, I don't even remember how long ago, um, about Aetherflux eggs, which eggs are basically low-cost artifacts that draw you a card either when they enter the battlefield or leave the battlefield. And you would combine cost reducers with Mystic Forge and Aetherflux to just play out your deck, gain a whole bunch of life, and win the game with Aetherflux Reservoir. This deck is somewhat of a spiritual successor um, to that deck, where essentially it does the same thing where you loop plain artifacts, either in this case we play them for their actual mana cost, but we generate just an obscene amount of mana that it doesn't even matter. And that is all to do stuff like this. So, the main card of the deck, or the win condition of the deck, is Torment of Hailfire. It reads, it's X black black, it's sorcery. Repeat the following process X times. Each opponent loses 3 life unless that player sacrifices a non-land permanent or discards a card. If any of you guys watching this have ever played Commander, this is usually a big payoff for a ramp deck or mana doublers and that sort of thing, where you just plug a huge amount of mana into the X spell and you just watch your opponents blow up, essentially. Um, this card is designed to end games. Um, this deck doesn't generate quite enough black mana for it to be considered a board wipe of the deck. But if you're in a pinch and you have enough mana, but you don't, like, say you don't have Paradox Engine, you just have a bunch of Powerstone Shards. You can still dump a bunch of mana and wipe the board, equalize life totals for the most part. But in general, you just don't play this until it's um, time to win the game, essentially, and that can happen very quickly. So to combo with our Paradox Engine, we have a set of mana rocks. Coldsteel Heart, because we are a colorless deck, um, we are running a lot of non-basics. We actually, in fact, do not have any basics in this deck. Um, Simply because we can fit a lot of utility lands when we don't need any colors. And Coldsteel Heart is just a very mana efficient way to get either black mana for Torment of Hailfire, or blue mana for our Forging the Anchor and Phyrexian Metamorph. Guardian Idol just is another two-drop artifact that can function as a blocker if you're in a pinch. However, um, you're really not going to be never going to be using its second ability, um, mainly because it comes untapped, and most of the time you're going to be using it as a mana rock instead of a blocker or something to hit your opponent with. Mindstone is one of just the best colorless mana rocks in general. 2 mana, adds a mana. You can sack it to draw a card if you're desperate, which, depending on what your board state is, you can absolutely do this. Um, and then lastly, we have a set of Hedron Archives. There's just another copy of him. It's a 4 mana, two mana rock. Again, that you can sack to draw some cards. Um, just a very basic suite of rocks. The other half of this deck's rocks are a wonderful card that I love playing at any opportunity. Is a Powerstone Shard. This is a 3 mana rock, which isn't that efficient, since normally, excuse me, it only taps for 1 mana. However, It taps for one colorless mana for each Powerstone Shard you have. And, you can do, if it says each, is copy it a bunch of times. Mycosynth Garden is a land that's, but taps for a colorless. Taps to filter mana into black for Torment of Hailfire, filter to blue for Fortune the Anchor. So if you've got like 4 colorless mana and a Mycosynth Garden, you can still cast your 3 mana Fortune the Anchor, and I'll get to that in a minute. Sculpting Steel can copy your Powerstone Shards or any of your other mana rocks. I usually save them for either a Hedron Archive, Powerstone Shard, or to replay a One Ring. The reason you would do that is because One Ring, copying the One Ring allows you to sacrifice the one you have been using. I guess I forgot to finish explaining the One Ring. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life for each bird encounter, and then it has a tap ability which you combo with Paradox Engine. For you tap this, place a bird encounter, and draw a card for each bird encounter. When this does not say once per turn, so you can just keep drawing an ever increasing amount of mana or cards off Paradox Engine looping. And the reason you would want to replace your One Ring, either to recast another copy in your hand that you've drawn, or the Sculpting Steel, is twofold. One, it gives you another turn of protection from everything, which can save your life while you're setting up. And 2, it will reset the bird encounter. So if you're, say you're on like 5 life left, and your One Ring has 4 counters on it, well, you can cast it, resets it back to 0, or the new copy has no counters, so at the beginning of your next upkeep, you either don't lose any life, or you lose 1 life because you activated it again. And then a 2 of Phyrexian Metamorph, just because it's a decent card. You can pay a little bit of life to get it out for the same cost, essentially the same cost as Sculpting Steel. And this can also copy any artifact or creature, so it can target your opponent's creatures if they have something that is just absolutely ruining your day, or useful to clear out the board, so you can have a chance to go off. This can copy it, but most of the time it's just copying Powerstone Shard, One Ring, just one of your other cards. Then we have a set of Scrylands. For Crystal Grotto, it's a filter land with a scry. Zhalfirin Void is just an older card that is just a colorless land with a scry. These can be used to help smooth out your draws. Like if you're like, oh, I'm gonna play this, oh, I've got a land on top, but I already have 4 lands in hand, I don't need another, then you can send that card off and draw something better. And just a good colorless land, like I said. These two are probably the easiest to swap out to other utility lands, like a Blast Zone, or let me pull them up. Blast Zone is very common. Extra piece of removal. Buried Ruin is good for artifact recursion if your opponent was either clearing out your artifacts or discarded a key piece for some reason. Demolition Tower and the other options for it. Field of Ruin, that sort of thing, are for land removal. You would have to rejig the land base as a whole to include at least some basics, because like I said, this deck does not run any basics, which can be an issue if you run into land destruction. But I play best of 1, so I tend to just skip over land destruction decks. It's not a fun strategy to play into, and while yes, you can deal with it, it's not a fun deck type to deal with. Um, and then that kind of brings us to the other kind of choice package. Um, so, which is the Forging the Anchor package. What I mean by choice package is the Powerstone Shard package, which is this set of cards, and the Forging the Anchor package for these guys are essentially dealer's choice. I've had a lot of success with them, but it is not an absolutely 100% required package to use. You can use me for yawning. I'm recording this at like 11 o'clock at night, so I'm wrapping up my night, but I wanted to get this out and recorded. Forging the Anchor is a 3 mana, 3 mana sorcery, two generic mana and a blue. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. Reveal any number of artifact cards from among them. Put those cards into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library. And if you've been paying attention, a good, let's see, a good almost 60% of our deck is artifacts, including some of our lands. Which basically means you can nine times out of 10 is going to be draw 3, 4, or 5 cards, which is incredibly efficient, especially in this deck. And to combo with that, we have 2 sets of the artifact lands. One of them is Darksteel Citadel, which is just an indestructible, colorless land, and Mistvault Bridge, which is one of our 2 ways to get colored mana. Well, 2 easy ways: Coldsteel Heart and Mistvault Bridge. It enters the battlefield tapped, so you love to see this early on in the game, like turn 1. Turn 1, usually this is basically the perfect land to drop because you don't have any 1-drops, or later on the game is still useful if you need the colored mana. But it is kind of less so. It's mainly just here to get tagged by Forging the Anchor to, if nothing else, pull it out of the deck so you don't hit it with One Ring. Oftentimes I'll end up with 7, 8, 9 lands in hand. So having a bunch less lands in or a bunch of lands in hand already means you have a lower risk of completely whipping with the One Ring and Paradox Engine. However, I have yet to have that happen to me. So take that as you will. Our last set of cards, we have Inventors Fair, which is a it's not as potent in this deck as it was in my eggs deck. Mainly because we're going to reuse most of our mana until we're going off. So it's there if you end up with like a bunch of mana and haven't drawn the other half, the different parts of your combo. You can tutor that out for 4 mana and sacrificing the land, so it's really 5 mana. But it does also get you some extra life that can keep you in the game against aggro decks. And then the final card in the deck, which is more of a card package, is the infamous Karn the Great Creator. One of the best planeswalkers for artifact decks to have come out in, I believe this was War, the War set. 2 of his abilities don't matter as much for us. His passive is artifact abilities of artifacts your opponent's control can't be activated. This shuts down a lot of decks um, that you wouldn't expect it to. There's some artifact-based aristocrat stacks that this can shut out with the Oni Anvil. It completely shuts down One Ring decks, which this is a One Ring deck. Um, this deck itself does get hit a lot harder by Karn, mainly because, like I said, unfortunately, Anvil, almost our entire deck is artifacts, um, which does include part of our mana base. So this can just kind of mess with you, or basically just completely shuts your deck down. Um, it does have a +1 that allows it to somewhat deal with an enemy Karn. You can, as a +1 loyalty, you can animate an artifact. Um, and animating the One Ring is fairly pointed. It's an indestructible 4/4. Um, that can hit something, notably a Karn or a War Narset, which shuts down your draw engine if your opponent doesn't have anything to prevent that from happening. What we really care about is his -2 ability, which basically gives you the opportunity for a Witch board. For our Witch board, or Karn board, or Magic, Wizard of the Coast, did change best of one Wish boards to only having 7 cards. It's a good change, honestly. Um, and I know that's neither here nor there. That change has been around for who knows how long. And you may have noticed that some of our cards don't have a full playset of them. Um, though that's because they ended up in our Karn board. We have 2 Paradox engines in our main deck and 1 in our Karn board. We have a copy of One Ring in our Karn board. We have a copy of Powerstone Shard in our Karn board. Main reason for this is because, like, if you got like 3 Sculpting Steels in hand and a Karn, you can fetch the Powerstone Shard, copy it a bunch of times, and go off from there. And also, I've just found that drawing a 3 mana rock that only taps for 1 can cause some issues. Um, but you still want to draw it regularly. So that's why it's a 3 of instead of a 4 of. We have Tormod's Crypt to attempt to shut down um, graveyard decks. It is also a 0 mana artifact that if we get a Karn off our One Ring while we're comboing, Tormod's Crypt is a free way to trigger Paradox Engine again. If we don't really have that many rocks, um, but we're still ready to go off, we can Karn in the Crypt to just trigger Paradox Engine very easily. We have a Karn's Sylex, which is just a good removal piece. You do have to be careful about about what mana value you trigger this with, because a large chunk of the cards that are going to be on the board for you are either going to be 2 or 3 mana, and a lot of cards your opponents are going to play in are going to be 2 or 3 mana. But there's more kind of a no shit button. Then we have another copy of Forsaken Monument. I debated back and forth even including this card. This is probably the least useful card. You could very easily replace this with a Aetherflux Reservoir, which does basically the same thing as Torment of Hailfire. I think I'm gonna go and do that. Editing decks live. Because Forsaken Monument gives +2/+2 to colorless creatures. We don't have any. Also, we animate with Karn. Cabinet Permanent for extra mana is useful. I'll just put it in the Karn board. It is useful because it allows you to go off easier with just your normal rocks, not have to worry about Powerstone Shards. But this is just another win condition in of itself that you can go off with. The main reason I decided to go with Torment of Hailfire in the main deck instead of Aetherflux Reservoir main deck is that I've run into quite a few decks running Leyline of Sanctity, 9 Lives, decks that just don't die to Aetherflux Reservoir, either because you can't target them or because they just don't take damage from a variety of combos, and also stuff like Platinum Angel that says you can't, I can't win, or I can't lose, you can't win, which while Aetherflux Reservoir can deal with that by just blowing up the Platinum Angel first, it's just kind of catch-22, and this does deal with it very easily, so because they have to sacrifice it. The last thing I will say is, if there's a particular package in this deck that you don't want to play with, you can very easily shift your mana base around to run, turn this into a control deck. We're running blue and black, aka Dimir, which has some of the more potent options for control decks, counter spells and board wipes. So you can put that package in, but again, I play best of one, which basically means if I play hard and fast rather than trying to ensure I win every single game. I just play what I enjoy playing. I have gotten to platinum with this deck. I don't play limited, but I've gotten up to platinum with this deck. So I decided, it's like, hey, let me go do some commentary and record some gameplay. So, I'm going to swap my scenes here, and we will get started with the games. We are going to be playing with in ranked. Deck is affectionately called Engine of Hailfire. And let's get going. I do have a deck tracker for you guys, so you can look at the deck and just follow along. I've found when watching players in various games, having the deck tracker makes it much easier to follow along with what the deck is actually doing and what's left in the deck. It also helps me, like, okay, I've gone through 3 of my 1 rings, so I have any left in my deck, and just helps out in general. So we are up against Abzan. Drop the Inventors Fair. Go Mindstone. Powerstone Shard. Like I said, because this deck has so many artifacts, I tend not to play Forging the Anchor on turn 3 or 4. Mainly because you will easily overdraw yourself.
I must contain the blight
whenever a land is. So we're playing against a land stack. Um, something that I turn my audio down. Something that I always recommend, is, it's obviously depends on the deck, but your deck is, the cards in your deck are, or sorry, not the cards in your deck. Your life total is a resource. Use it. Basically that means, if you're going to get slapped around, by whatever deck your opponent is playing, as long as you have more than one life left, that means you have, that means you just have enough, you are still in the game. So, as long as you're above one life and are not going to die on your next upkeep from Wondering, let them hit you in the face. There are some decks, like poison decks, where you don't let that happen because they can kill you very, very fast. But for the most part, as long as you have more life than needed to live, you're fine. So, this is a case where Inventors Fair is going to come in clutch, because I have oodles and oodles of mana, but no cards in hand. My opponent appears to be confused on what to do, because I have entirely too much mana. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 12, 16. I have 20 mana. I have 20 mana available in Mana Rocks alone, which is quite fun. Again, like I said, you really don't care if they hit you in the face as long as you're still alive. And, okay, so, I'm going to go Darksteel Citadel, Crystal Grotto, Guardian Idol, to make yet another Powerstone Shard copy. I'm going to then tap one of them, copy these guys again, and so now each of these is tapping for 6 mana, which means we can actually trigger 2 Inventors Fairs this turn, getting ourselves a Paradox Engine, and come on, and a Wandering. Paradox Engine. On Arena, you can double tap Q to tap all your mana. It's especially useful for Paradox Engine decks, where you are just churning through your mana. And then this is basically just the entirety of what the deck does. Going on black, because that is what the deck mainly cares about for colored mana. And there's kind of a point where you're like, okay, I have enough mana. All I care about is tapping the Wandering, and our opponent concedes. It doesn't take super long to either have your opponent concede or just get to your win condition. Because once you're at the board state I am, unless your opponent is playing instant speed removal, there's really nothing they can do. The main threats for this deck once it's going off are going to be counter spells on your Torment of Hailfire, in general, people counterspell players tend to only play or leave up mana for 1 or 2 counterspells. You can be almost assured that they're going to, if they don't counterspell the Paradox Engine, they're definitely going to be counterspelling your Torment of Hailfire or your One Ring. But in general, what I've seen, control players tend to only have a single counterspell up at a given time. So if you get your first Torment of Hailfire counterspelled, then when you're going off, you have more than enough mana to just cast the second one, honestly. On mulligans, as long as I have rocks and lands to play them, I'm usually happy. Because I already have 3 lands and a bunch of rocks, I especially don't need another tap land. Like I said, that's kind of why I play Crystal Grotto and Zhalfirin Void, because it helps smooth out your mana curve. If you wanted to, you could definitely play this deck with 24 lands or with 20 lands. It's up to you. It's just kind of how I prefer to run fewer lands. And because my curve is my mana curve is about average, but I have a ton of rocks, so you don't really need that many as many lands. In my eggs deck, I actually run 18, because you basically just need to hit 3 mana, and then everything after that costs 1 or 2 mana, and then it costs 0 mana due to all the cost reducers it runs. But for this deck, I run 22, so I can just keep everything together. So because I have a Powerstone Shard, actually I'm going to keep this Mycosynth Garden, mainly because it can turn into another Powerstone Shard. So what I like to do is kind of figure out like how many cards do I actually want to play to get the most mana out. So if I play a Mind Stone, I can then play a Powerstone Shard, which is usually what I do. Just being mana efficient, this deck doesn't have any instant speed removal. The only thing that's really instant speed is Guardian Idol. I just realized that this deck is probably a Goblin Charbelcher deck, considering we've got a bunch of flip lands already. But hopefully we'll either see it go off and laugh at it, or we'll go off. Yeah, basically you just want to try to be efficient with your mana in order to get the most out of it that you can. I don't know what's holding up this guy's priority. He only has a single mana. Yeah, I'm really not sure what's holding up his priority, but if he wants to rope me out, he's more than welcome to. So he's going to be going up to 5 mana this turn, which means he can, yep, there's the Goblin Charbelcher. So what I am going to be doing is, normally I would just drop double Hedron Archive. However, because he's played the Charbelcher, I'm going to be dropping the Karn, which completely disables the Charbelcher. And I'm also going to be grabbing a One Ring. Now, this isn't, again, like I said, you do want to try to be efficient with your mana. I didn't quite have enough mana to play the One Ring as well. I'm just going to do this. So the hope is he doesn't have an answer to the Karn without spending more mana than he has for the Charbelcher. Which he does not appear to have an answer to the Karn at all right now, which is wonderful. Let's see what he plays. And he just concedes. That's kinda to be expected. The Charbelcher deck is much like this deck where it is just, you play the combo. If it works, great. If not, well, I'm done. It's a little bit of a catch-22 as well. I think I'm going to do a set of 5 games. So 2 more games after this one. Again, for mulliganing, I have 2 lands and a bunch of rocks. I'm very happy, especially because I have a One Ring. Because you play so many rocks, you really don't need like a perfect curve. So one thing, because I do have a Coldsteel Heart in hand, I'm going to be taking the Forging the Anchor off my scry. Because I have a guaranteed blue source. I will take another land. It's mainly because I don't have an obscene amount of mana yet. So just making sure that I'm going to have enough mana to survive is good. I don't need to play the One Ring here, because this is they do have enough mana for Collected Company, but elves do not have enough haste damage to kill you on the spot, unlike goblins. So that means I can develop 2 more mana rocks before I'm forced to drop the One Ring. As expected, they don't have a Collected Company. No, and they're tapping their Mystics, so I am pretty happy with this. They probably have Collected Company now. No, just more elves. Yeah. So this is the type of turn that you would definitely play the One Ring on, because that basically is a get out of jail free card. Like, hey, yep, good job. You don't get to do anything to me this turn. So I'm going to go ahead and draw with the One Ring first. That is nice to see, but not super helpful. I'm going to drop my Forging the Anchor. Normally gives me a good chance of hitting what I need for the combo, but I got pretty bad luck there. But I still have a free turn here. He gets to continue building up his board. Yay. He is not able to deal any damage to me. And there's his Karn. I am not sure why he's playing Karns in elves. Interesting. Guessing he has removal. I'm probably not winning this game, quite simply because I don't have an answer to Karn, and that shuts my entire mana base down. Yeah, I don't even have enough mana to play my Karn, and they have enough defenders. So while they decide not to do anything, I'm just gonna go ahead and concede. I can't deal. I'm unable to deal with their Karn. So that's just kind of how the cookie crumbles. Because this is arena. You don't really care. I play to find good quality games. By good quality, I mean getting to play my deck and go off. Other people might not be happy with me playing solitaire, but I like playing solitaire. And it's funny to, like I said, play an X100, Torment of Hailfire, or other just dumb stuff like that. I think my personal opinion is these make much more enjoyable decks to watch than combo decks are much more enjoyable to watch than control decks, where you sit and stare at people for your opponent for 30 minutes trading counter spells. That's just my personal opinion. Give me 1 second. Sometimes the game just completely breaks and bugs out, and decides just not to work. Hopefully we get an actual human being. Yep, there we go. Whenever you see my OBS, just because OBS doesn't like picking up untapped deck tracker. Why, I have no idea. But it just doesn't like it. Again, like I said, lands and rocks or lands to get to the rocks is perfectly happy to keep. This deck has enough cycling and scrying and drawing to get to the rest of your deck. The reason you play the Guardian Idol instead of the Mind Stone is I have nothing else to play off of the Mind Stone mana. So when Guardian Idol comes in tapped, so you play it before your Mind Stone. Okay. So I have 3 mana and didn't draw another land. So that means I can play my Mind Stone and then play the Guardian Idol to, again, maximize your mana, ensure that you get enough out to continue playing the game. This deck can function on very few lands and work with a whole lot of lands. Just entirely depends on what you're doing, or what your draws are like. So a perfect top deck would be either Fortune the Anchor or Wandering, probably. Karn works as well. Speak of the Devil. So we have they only have 6 damage on the board. Not really threatening yet. So we can either play out the Hedron Archive, or we can play 2 Powerstone Shards and then wouldn't be able to also play the Hedron Archive. Let's play the Hedron Archive and the Powerstone Shard. Um, that gets us 3 mana onto the board, which is 1 less with this, but there's their own One Ring. Not too surprising that it's here, but hey, we're here. There's our land into let's see. I guess if I play this, yeah. There's Forsaken Monument, using that, we'll go with that, and these guys. Makes all of our other colorless sources produce 1 more mana. Means our Hedron Archive can pay for a Powerstone Shard. Then play our own One Ring. That is a bit of an unfortunate draw. So the reason I tap these is mainly just to hold in a priority thing. Since I don't have anything to do with tapped Guardian Idols. And I mean, it does technically, air quotes, give away information. I'm not particularly futzed about it. Just not a large deal. Shieldred is one of the better, a really good combo with the One Ring, and especially decks like Mono Black Devotion, that sort of thing. I'm not sure what they're playing. It looks like Orzhov something or another. But just depends. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and draw with our One Ring. We will take a bit more damage off Shieldred, but like I said, as long as you're above 0 life, you are good. We do gain back 2 life every time we cast a colorless spell. Which Fortune Anchor unfortunately isn't a colorless spell. However, it does not count as drawing, which means I have a better chance of picking up what I need. In this case, unfortunately, we did not get it. So in this situation, you really want to be finding Karn so that we can grab the Cityscape Leveler we have. Unfortunately, we did not draw it, which in this case, I think... Let's see. Okay. I think it is going to make the most sense to still go for Paradox Engine. Gain 2 life. I think it's still going to make sense to go for Paradox Engine. Mainly because we can still cast a large number of artifacts to gain the life needed for to negate Shieldred's effect, and hopefully we can get the Karn off of our One Ring draws. Grab Paradox Engine, cast Paradox Engine. So we have enough to draw 6 cards, tap everything, cast a Hedron Archive, Gets us another 2 life. To draw more cards, hope we see a Karn. Unfortunately, we don't see any Karn. You're down to 8. But we have enough life for one more go round on the One Ring. And have an absolutely obscene amount of mana to use it with. And in fact, we actually found one of... okay, so first I have to play Coldsteel Heart. And that is so I have enough life to play a Phyrexian Metamorph on our wonderful good friend Shieldred. And what this will do is basically just negate the effects of hurt their Shieldred. Which means I can draw a whole bunch of cards. I believe this works. I guess it doesn't. Today I learned. How many... Okay, so I needed 1, 2, 3. I only had 1. I probably could have like gone through my mind stones and that sort of thing to not die there, but I learned the interaction. For some reason I thought it would alternate, but it doesn't. Oh well, you live in, well, you don't live, but you learn. But basically just having your own Shieldred out, as long as you have the life total to back it up, you can, it essentially negates their Shieldred while you are cycling with One Ring. It happens. Shieldred is probably one of the cards that you might consider adding to this deck instead of like a probably instead of the Phyrexian Metamorphs and fiddle with your lands a bit. So because I already have blue mana available, I'm playing this on black, because you really only need 1 or 2 blue mana. You don't really need much. You don't really need much blue mana. You don't really need to copy anything with the Phyrexian Metamorph, so we can just move on. One thing I learned the hard way is copying the Coldsteel Heart with your Mycosynth Garden does not work. It does not copy the chosen color, unfortunately. This is probably a counterspell. That is... yeah, I'm just going to concede out of that. I have absolutely no desire to play into Azori's control. And that's up to you, how you want to play your games. Really doesn't matter that much. I think we're going to do one more game. Yeah. The video will be a little bit over an hour long. Hopefully you haven't gotten bored of the sound of my voice. Um, this is actually pretty fun. I do think I'm gonna plan on making more videos, maybe not on this particular deck, but who knows. So this hand, because I don't have any draw, any pieces of my combo, or basically, yeah, I am going to mulligan this. It's basically just a hand that does nothing. This is a hand I can keep. So we keep the Mana Rock, we keep the Forging the Anchor, which means we keep the Mistvault. The Karn can get us a One Ring, but I would rather just have the One Ring straight up, because we have a Forging the Anvil, and the Karn. I think the Inventors Fair is fine going away, because we'll be at 3 mana with our Mind Stone, as long as they don't mess with our land base or anything, we should be good to go. Snow-covered Swamp. They might be playing a discard deck. Doesn't actually look like it. So we're going to scry before the Forging the Anchor. That way we can see at least one card ahead. In this case, I don't want a Forsaken Monument. While it would count as a draw, I want good draws, not any draw. God damn. I feel like I've had a very bad showing with my Forging the Anchors. I promise you that this is a good card, and it will grab lots of cards a lot of the time. There's Okish Bowmasters. We don't really have a good way to deal with Orcish Bowmasters. I guess I could Karn the Great Creator for Karn's Sylex to blow up 2 drops, which would also blow up my own Mind Stone. That doesn't feel great. I think we're going to go Hedron Archive, Powerstone Shard, and go from there. We still have quite a bit of life to work with, so I think playing the One Ring is fine here. Going ahead and drawing a card. Each card does essentially cost us 2 life, unfortunately. Like I said, having protection makes it so that it's hard for them to target yourself. Let's see. I think I drop the Karn here to grab maybe a Cityscape Leveler. Next turn on the Orcish Bowmaster. Because we have enough mana for it. That just basically means we can get rid of the Bowmaster. Obviously, you can very easily kill the Karn here. It's kind of a whatever type situation. Inventors Fair. Yeah, I'm guessing you didn't have anything else in hand. I'm gonna go ahead and give you guys one more game. I feel kind of... This is a pretty bad showing, unfortunately. I didn't even advance in by a ranked division. So it's not a great showing. I have a lot of fun with this deck. I think an Aetherflux Reservoir version of this deck is going to function faster. Quite simply because you get the life total to work with, and against Shieldred and Bowmaster. I am not going to play into discard. I guess I'm just going to go ahead and make that change. I think dropping the Forsaken Monument for a main deck Aetherflux just makes more sense. The deck just generates so much mana, it's hard not to justify the Torment of Hailfire. But Aetherflux Reservoir is just too good in too many matchups. Bowmaster, basically Bowmaster and Shieldred are going to just absolutely wreck your day. So having the Aetherflux Reservoir, I think, is a good option, because we can fetch it out. We already have one on the sideboard with Karn, and we can grab it with Inventors Fair, we can draw it. It's just going to be a better option. This is an okay hand. We've got to filter land to get to the Forge and the Anchor, and we have rocks and a Paradox Engine. We'll go ahead and scry. I think we'll take the Sculpting Steel. It doesn't help us immediately. Not playing into discard. Does it have a place in the meta? Yes. Discard has a place just the same as control. Do I like playing into discard and control and land destruction? Absolutely not. I'm not like a top 100 mythic player, as you can see by me playing this shitty, crazy ass jank deck. Can this deck get really high up there? Yeah, I would say so. Am I gonna get there? No. I'm not gonna get up to Mythic easily. Karn. I think we're happy with Karn. Next turn is probably dropping the Hedron Archive if I had that prop, I think. Or Mindstone. I definitely want the Mindstone. Yeah, actually, I think dropping the Hedron Archive. I wish I had that Mindstone in hand, but I don't. So we have 7 mana. I'm thinking going Anchor here probably makes more sense. I'm going Karn. Then get a whole pile of stuff. So if we go Mind Stone, we then have enough mana for a Coldsteel Heart as well. So I'm going to go blue on this. We have already used one Forging the Anchor, but we have enough filter mana over. Otherwise, I think we're fine overall. I do think next this is the turn where we go in on the Karn to fetch a One Ring. Will leave me with 4 open. Mainly because they have enough damage on board to kill me. And I can also Sculpting Steel and Metamorph on my One Ring to copy it. 100% they kill the Karn. There's no world where they don't kill the Karn. So this is actually a situation where if I had the option, like if I top deck a Karn here, I would go grab a Karn Sylex, because they've got a bunch of 2-drops, and even though I have a number of 2-drops as well, they can just get wiped out. However, well, because I drew the Darksteel Citadel, or the Paradox Engine, it just doesn't matter what I do now. Try the Paradox Engine. Three mana to copy the Powerstone. So if I hadn't top deck ripped the Paradox Engine off the top of my deck, I would have I need U for black. I also need U for black. That's done. We're going to play the Idol. A Coldsteel Heart. Play a... draw more cards. This is basically just what the deck does. You play your entire hand and deck and all sorts of fun stuff. And then you just jam a Torment of Hailfire. 30, 35, 36, 38. Good enough for me. For some reason they survive this, which I doubt they will. I have just continue looping to play another one, which is already in my hand, but if it was in my deck, I've got plenty of draws off the One Ring to continue going. So that's the deck. See what life total they get to. minus 58. And, like, basically any other... This deck is not a functionally infinite. You could get a ancestral statue, which you could go infinite with 4 mana with. It's a 4 mana 3/4 that when enters the battlefield you get to bounce it back. This is very common in Karn boards for like Aetherflux Reservoir and other cost reducing decks. Is actually one of the combo pieces in my eggs deck. A way so you can just play this for free, bounce it, play it for free, bounce it, and you get infinite life with Aetherflux, infinite mana with Paradox Engine. There's just a lot of dumb stuff you can do with this. Yeah, that's about it. Like I said, there's a whole bunch of different options and versions that you can make this deck your own. Yeah, let's see, we've been playing for hour and 15 minutes. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. Hope you enjoyed the deck tech, maybe learned something. And I will catch you guys on the next video. Have a wonderful night. Bye bye.